I saw an awful video this weekend. Jokes aside, there was a helicopter parked, and you're looking at it sort of a 3/4 angle. It's on the ground, but the rotors are spinning. Rear and front. What do you call that thing in the back? It's the rear rotor, right? You call it a rotor?
Tail rotor, I think.
Tail rotor. Thanks. And there's a lot of people. There's maybe 5 men there standing around the chopper. 3 of them in a group, kind of looking at it. I don't know what's going on. But then this one guy is going to run around behind the helicopter, and he's at a brisk jog. And no one can stop him because the helicopter's so loud. And he runs right into the tail rotor. And it goes, Vroom! It sounded like that. It hit him like 8 times as fast as you can imagine. Vroom! And he just falls. And the video quality isn't good enough to see exactly how bad he was mutilated. But he just falls. And nobody even goes to help. They just all put their hands on their heads and look away. Because he's done. Because he's done. He like ran face first into the tail rotor.
Yeah, like just a lapse in judgment. Like he
didn't know it was there.
You can't see it because it's spinning so fast, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you would think you would hear the very loud noise of a helicopter going.
No, but it's the top one's
But
going.
he assumed it was the top one making the noise.
The like little back one.
Okay. I've never been that close to a helicopter. I assumed it'd
Never
be making
been in
like
a helicopter?
Like
it's a good time.
It's super noisy.
Yeah, you
like a helicopter once, like a shuttle at Disney World when I was a kid.
Really? Wait! You took a helicopter at Disney World?
I think it was in Florida. I don't remember if it was Disney World. I was in a helicopter for some reason. No, I didn't. It definitely wasn't Disney World because I didn't go there until I was like 12. I was like 6 or 7. And I was
There's a temporary flight restriction over Disney World that's lasted like 40 years. I don't know why they call it a temporary flight restriction, but you can't fly over it.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
Safety concerns, perhaps. You wouldn't
roller coasters or something.
It's
the way you guys are saying it, you're making it seem like it's very easy to walk into the tail rotor of a helicopter, and I don't believe that. Like, there's no way it's.
So it is invisible because it's spinning. Like invisible like a fan. And the audio cue that you're hoping to pick up on. Well, the whole area is so noisy and windy. And you're kind of in a hurry to leave the area, right? You're trying to get away from the noise and the wind and the top thing. And, well, I didn't walk into the back of it in any of my helicopter flights.
No.
I can imagine that somebody would.
That's scary.
People are stupid. There are some people walking around who are just barely able to do that. And asking more of them than that is a bridge too far, which is one of my favorite expressions. I think that a bridge too far comes from maybe D-Day during the Allied invasion. I think they dropped paratroopers in to take these bridges, and they went a bridge too far, I suppose, was the expression, and dangerous. Lost a lot of men. Yeah, we pushed just a little bit ahead of our means.
I buy that.
I had a fan land in my front yard with his helicopter and then take me to lunch, and he also spent a lot of time teaching me how the helicopter works. Some people aren't smart enough to know how helicopters work. I'm just saying.
Are you one of them? Or
there's a good chance, that maybe I'm one of them.
Yeah.
How does a turbine engine work exactly? Like it's an engine that only works. You can't start it unless the engine's already started. This baffles me. Like you can't light it. It has to already be lit, and then it keeps going perpetually. How does it turn off? Turbine engines that don't make any sense to me. I don't get it.
And then a gift somewhere.
And then he says, Woody, it's like a Bunsen burner. Oh, sure. Like, okay.
Say no more.
I don't understand how a Bunsen burner is about to make us fly.
So you have it hooked up to there's a propane gas flame, like a flamethrower that keeps it stoked.
I don't know.
I don't know how a turbine engine works either. But I know the helicopters are fucking cool. I've been in a hot air balloon. I did that as a kid. We went to Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg on one of those cheesy vacations and went on a ride. And I've done multiple helicopters. I've done the big helicopters and the little ones. The Robinson 22s and 44s, I think, is what they are. The 22 is famous for being the world's most dangerous helicopter, the one responsible for the most deaths and traumatic injuries.
Cool.
In part because it is a dangerous helicopter, but mostly because it is the most affordable, reliable helicopter in that genre. It's like, if, I don't know, the Toyota Camry had the most deaths in it. It's like, Jesus, everybody has one, of course. Yeah. I bet most drownings happen at pools.
It's really hard to fly. Do you know anything about it? So, like, if I gave you an Apache, if I gave you, Kyle, an Apache, I think by this afternoon you could be flying.
I could get some justice finally.
and the reason is it like self-stabilize. It's almost like a drone. You know, you push it forward to go forward, whatever, and it has advanced electronics that handle a lot of shit for you. If you know how to fly an Apache, you don't know how to fly a Robinson. But the inverse or the converse is not true. If you know how to fly a Robinson, you can fly fucking anything because that doesn't help you at all. It is constantly trying to tip over and slide into the ground. And you're there like just balancing a quarter on top of a
I like that though.
Pencil dot the whole time, just trying to keep it up because it always wants to fall and crash to the ground. So that's partly why they're so dangerous.
It's always pulling in that one direct. It's always pulling in that one direction and trying to tilt, right? So you've kind of got that as your zero, I would imagine, and an experienced pilot just lives in that zone perpetually, which you just feel comfortable with after a while, I suppose. But both of the pilots I've had were excellent, I felt, as far as I'm able to judge a pilot based on their resume and just how they handled themselves and the things they were able to do with the helicopters. My 22 pilot was able to get us, I'm going to call it 30 feet off the ground, traveling as fast. He matched speed perfectly with the pigs I was shooting, and he flew sideways with my door as the leading edge. So I'm one ass cheek on my seat leaned out, and I'm the leading edge of this of our flight path. It was incredible. And then the 44 pilot, I mean, I let him dangle me from a goddamn rope. So I trusted him clearly. But the other guy that was there that day, because these are completely separate like shoots, the 44 pilot I had, it was that orange helicopter. He was great. There was a 22 there that day too, though, with a young pilot in his 20s. And we asked him how many hours. He said, you know what his answer was? Enough. The other guy was from Nam. The other guy was an old white guy, gray hair and a beard, like short white hair.
I trust him.
And from Nam, he had flown a fucking helicopter. The other guy's answer, enough. He nearly went down. He nearly went down that day. Yeah. At one point, he was hovering over an explosive that was on fire and could go off any second. And that burst of hot air under his helicopter would have dropped him. The air's thinner.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He can't get the lift now. He would have dropped. It would have been like if you were to release a huge amount of bubbles underneath a boat.
Yeah.
Right. It would
paragliding. It lifts you because it's rising air. And there was like this big controversy during a world championships. A guy was bombing out, which means that he was about to end his flight and not do well. And he found farmers burning their field. So he goes to this burning field and starts rising super fast, dangerous. His wings collapsing. The air is turbulent. It's a total fucking mess. It doesn't fly anymore. And he's still gaining altitude. The embers start burning holes in his wing, and he is still gaining altitude.
Oh, no.
He eventually did really well. Like, he finished top 5 in this world championship on his fucking wing with holes all over it. It was ratted and destroyed. He never flew it again, but it extended his flight.
Yeah.
Could have died.
No, those are really fun to fly in. I would, if I was going to learn to fly a thing, it seems like, first of all, it seems like the stupidest thing to do. However,
it's the worst financial decision you'll ever make.
It's the best if you're getting into an aircraft. I think a 22, right? Like if you're going to buy a Robinson, if you were going to get into flying around and you wanted an aircraft, like a thing, you could buy I bet a Robinson 22 is fairly affordable, and it's the maintenance, right? Like, don't you have to do? Is it an hour ratio 1-to-1?
I've heard that. I imagine it varies by aircraft, right? Like, these military ones are like that. My when I first started Woodycraft, I had a partner. He was 15 years old, and he had like 30% of Woodycraft. He used his money to buy a helicopter. That was his passion. He was just always flying helicopters, and he took his share of the earnings and bought one. He was only you have to be 16 to get a license, but at 15 you can take lessons. Yeah. So he, like, even though he could fly a helicopter and he had something like 300 or 400 hours of experience, he would just pay an instructor to sit in the other seat so he could fly his personal helicopter around. They took it to Cracker Barrel a lot. That was like one of their favorite missions, to go get lunch.
Do you think you get, all right, we've talked about trying to pull pussy with a car, but man, I bet could you do it with a helicopter? Could you land your helicopters? I know, definitely at a high school. You land your helicopter to high school.
Pull pussy with any vehicle. You name it. A Lamborghini, a Ferrari. I can bring them all back in empty.
Razor scooter, anything.
I'm just wondering, like ladies,
I feel like I remember a story of like some guy. I can't remember. It's like some famous stories. I'm sure somebody tell me in the fucking comments or somebody. But there is some famous story about a guy who used to go about like with a helicopter, made like some bet with some guy at a bar. Really famous story. And then he like started picking up chicks with it.
Picked up girls with a
like
helicopter?
landed it in like areas where he shouldn't have, and then got massive fines for it. Fuck! I wish I could remember the actual story and it wasn't just.
I believe
I
that.
wonder what the rules are.
You would get
to
fined.
landing.
Yeah. What? Like, could you, if you really wanted to, could you just like find a public field and just land?
I do it with
there?
my paramotor. Like we go to Waffle House and shit.
I think you can. I
I
really think it's unlikely.
No, not a parking lot.
Well, you know this, Woody. It's not like there's air police, right? So you could probably just do whatever you wanted as long as you didn't fuck up and hit some power lines one day or careen into a house. Then you're in trouble.
I'm almost
my experience
positive
has been
cops
sometimes
have
people report you to the FAA even falsely.
Well, that's your unique situation that you have. You know, that's because you're you. You know, I know what that feels like.
I got even fly that day. What?
Not as bad as you, of course.
Mr. Woodworth, we have credible reports that you're going to fly your paramotor into the 6th floor of the Freedom Tower.
6th floor. Fuck you. I could get to the 12th. I'm sure you could. You could fly over it. Of course you could.
Yeah, I've been to 12,000. My friends have been to 18,000 feet. So the Freedom Tower is
so cool.
1,700 or something.
1776, right?
I think. I'm not positive.
Yeah, I think they went with that. You know,
I fly higher than that every flight.
Makes sense, of course. Yeah. I think about your. Whenever I talk to my dad, we talk. He's like, if we talk about you, he's like, he's still flying that thing, because he's always had just a little bit of interest in those things since we were hunting one time. Someone flew one over us and we were waving, so they were like doing tricks above us, you know, flying back and forth, sort of putting on a show for us. And so after doing like quick research, they're like $10,000 or $12,000, and we were looking at the trikes. I don't think we knew the other kind existed. And he was borderline buying one of those things back in the day. He's like, yeah, we could just build a runway right here in the field.
You could.
I had the same idea. I was really tempted to buy one at one point because when I was living not in central London, I was living like out in the countryside. Bro, like, yeah, there's fields everywhere. Just fly wherever you want, right?
I know like 6 van lifers who have a paramotor. They just drive around and fly into cool places. My Acro Club, the one where we launch in Lake Hartwell, think we're getting insurance like this week or next week. And maybe 2 weeks from now, the club is back up and running. So,
oh, good.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a holdup or of any kind.
In brief, the National Army Corps, or whoever runs the
Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you. That's what it is. The Army Corps of Engineers shut us down because they operate the lake we worked out of. And once we assured them we weren't commercial, and they just said, we'll get some insurance, which turned out to be tricky. And we're almost done.
Did they voice the issue, or did you go to them, ask for permission, and then they said no?
A random pilot reported us as if we had done something wrong. Like, these guys are flying over the lake. And we're like, yeah. You know, FAA Part 103 regulates. The FAA came back and said they're breaking no rules. But the Army Corps of Engineer said, you know, like, you can fly around. The flying part's not the problem. It's the 7 feet we run on the grass. That's the part they're worried about.
Yeah.
Before we launch.
There's nobody to talk about that with either. Like, if it was something else, you could go to like a little politician there, and those people are so friendly. They love having someone come in their office and have a problem that they can actually solve. If you go talk to a small town mayor, because you can get right in there. What's he doing? They'll usually fix some shit like that. But with the Army Corps of Engineers, yeah, whenever I was going to do something silly, like I had a pretty good relationship with the sheriff in like both places, because we were always blowing shit up and getting calls, and their deputies are having to come out. So it was good to talk to those people beforehand. But with the Army Corps of Engineers, that's the fucking, I don't know exactly what that is, but I think it's a federal army, like side quest that they're on over there to maintain that and secure that dam over at Lake Hartwell and the lake that that supports it, all that stuff.